In today's video, we are going to be discussing Deebo Samuel requesting a trade from the San Francisco 49ers. Now, before we get into the video, please consider liking and subscribing, and let's jump right into the video. So obviously, as we mentioned off the start, Deebo Samuel has officially requested a trade from the San Francisco 49ers after the rumblings of those wide receivers from that 2019 draft class sitting out of offseason workouts with their teams. Now, when it comes to Deebo Samuel, he still has one more year left on his rookie contract. So that means he could sit out this year, but it also means that the San Francisco 49ers do not have to trade Deebo Samuel. They could just keep him on the team and basically just make him sit for an entire year. Now, when this news first broke, I was personally confused. I'm like, well, why would Deebo Samuel want to request a trade from the San Francisco 49ers? Because you look at Deebo Samuel, he's everything that a football player probably would want. He's the focal point of the San Francisco 49ers offense. He does everything, and the coaches put him in the best possible position every single play, every single week to make him succeed and make the plays every single time he touches the football. So that when I first saw this news, I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit confused on why Deebo Samuel would want to request a trade from the 49ers, because personally, I just think the 49ers know how to use Deebo Samuel so well. But then the more I started to read about it, the more I started to get knowledge of what the situation was about. And the more that I started to interact with people, I then figured out, okay, it kind of makes sense why Deebo wants to be traded and he wants to get out of San Francisco. The 49ers used him a boatload. Now, again, the 49ers, I don't blame them for using them because they're just trying to put their team in the best possible position to win every single week. And it's not the 49ers' fault that they had injuries out the wazoo when it comes to their running back position. So they kind of needed a guy to step up there and be their running back. And that's when Deebo Samuel was charted with being their running back by default. But at the same time, Deebo Samuel was also their top wide receiver on his team. It's not like he was putting up small numbers as a wide receiver. He was putting up massive numbers as a wide receiver last year. 77 receptions, 1,405 yards, 6 touchdowns. And then you want to add on top of what he did as a running back, 59 rushes, 365 yards, and 8 touchdowns. So his production was off the charts, which means he was getting hit a lot more than most wide receivers in the NFL. And for the future of his career, that's not something that Deebo wants to do long term, because he has been injured in the past. And to protect his career, to protect his job, and to be in the NFL long term, he doesn't want to be that wide back, the running back and wide receiver of a team. He's very successful at what he does. There's no denying that. Deebo Samuel is one of the few guys that can genuinely be charted as a running back or a wide receiver on any given week. But if you look at the running back position, you look at one of the best running backs in the entire NFL, and that's Christian McCaffrey. And he can't stay healthy. But when he is healthy, he's the best player on the football field. But you also look at the fact that, he's injured all the time, and Deebo Samuel sees that. And he also probably saw the numbers and that, the 49ers, they were using him a boatload. Like, his production was high, but the 49ers were also basically relying on Deebo Samuel to run their entire offense. And for Deebo's sake, that's probably not something that he wants to do. He doesn't want to take those hits. He wants to stay healthy long term and make as much money and play in the NFL as long as he possibly could. Now, it's said that money's not the issue in this, but at the same time, Deebo Samuel's going to get paid a lot of money. Is he going to get paid what Adams and Tyreek Hill got? I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be that much money, but is it going to be in the Christian Kirk range? Probably. Is it going to be in the Stephon Diggs range? Probably. Like, those two contracts, probably. It'd probably be somewhere in the middle of those contracts for Deebo Samuel. But at the end of the day, Deebo Samuel doesn't want to take those hits anymore. And I completely understand. You're a talented enough guy, but just give Deebo Samuel the ball in the passing game and let him make plays that way. There's no reason to make him get hit all the time. Now, when it comes to San Francisco, when they do lose him, this draft is loaded at the wide receiver position, and I do believe that Kyle Shanahan can get the best out of any receiver he puts in there. Brandon Ayuk is a guy that might have to step up if Deebo Samuel is gone. But at the end of the day, I think that, if the 49ers do lose him, I think Kyle Shanahan's a great coach. Deebo Samuel fit that system perfectly, but I also think Kyle Shanahan's a really good football coach, and he can probably insert the next guy. Look at the running back position. He's able to insert any running back, and they're successful in the run game. But then there's also a handful of teams that are looking at Deebo right now, and those teams include the Jets, Packers, the Lions, and one of the teams that when I saw the report was the Kansas City Chiefs, and I was not expecting that, to be 100% honest. So this begs the question, should the Kansas City Chiefs trade for Deebo Samuel? Now, if I'm being 100% honest, and if I'm just answering the question straight up, the answer is no. I don't think the Kansas City Chiefs need to trade for Deebo Samuel for a few reasons. One, if they do end up getting Deebo Samuel, they're just going to end up paying Deebo that money that they were going to give Tyreek Hill, and that's going to be a huge payday and a huge hit to the Chiefs cap space. They may have $18 million in cap space right now, but I don't think the Chiefs need to necessarily be giving that big of a cap number and that big of a contract to just one guy right now. But then you also have to look at the whole structure of the entire Chiefs team. The Chiefs have a whole bunch of holes that they're going to have to fill through the draft, and so I don't think the Chiefs want to be giving up any of their prime draft capital to be trading for just one guy, because Deebo, he's going to command giving up a first round draft pick to be able to acquire him from the San Francisco 49ers. And I don't think the Chiefs really want to give up either one of their first round draft picks, because they got obviously a second one from the trade with the Miami Dolphins, but now they're in a really good spot in this year's draft, owning the 29th and 30th overall pick. And I don't think the Chiefs really want to give up either one of those guys when it comes to getting Deebo Samuel. But then you also have to look at the Chiefs as a whole. They're in a prime and a good position in this year's draft because they have 5 picks in the first 100 picks of this year's draft. And that's important because if you're looking at the depth of this year's wide receiver class and this year's draft, there is a lot of talent in this year's draft. Now, obviously, guys like Deebo Samuel don't just grow on trees. He's a very special talent. There's no denying that. But at the same time, there is a lot of talent in this year's draft. And at the end of the day, I would much rather roll out the wide receiver crew that the Chiefs have now with Juju, MVS, and McCole Hardman, who is in a contract year, and he's going to be playing very hard this year. And then you roll out whichever rookie that the Chiefs do end up getting in this year's draft. And I think you're going to have a really solid group of guys. And then you also have to remember the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes. They have Andy Reid as a head coach. Eric Bieniemy's there. And another note that, may not be important, but Matt Nagy's back. So who knows how much work that he's going to have with the offense. So there's a lot of good things going for the Chiefs right now. And like I said, the group is solid right now. And then you add one of these young studs in this year's draft who are going to be really good, and it's loaded with wide receiver talent. I think the Chiefs will be okay if they don't trade for Deebo Samuel. But I just think at the end of the day, the Chiefs have a lot of things that they have to fix with this team, defensive line, cornerback, and wide receiver, that I think the Chiefs would much rather keep their draft capital that they do have than give up for one guy. Because, the Chiefs, even if they don't hit on their first round draft pick with a wide receiver, Brett Veach has a tendency to be really good at late in drafts. So if, say, their first round pick doesn't hit, Brett Veach is really good at getting talent late in drafts. But that is the news of Deebo Samuel requesting a trade from the San Francisco 49ers, and also discussing if the Chiefs should go after Deebo Samuel. Give me your thoughts down below of what you think is going to happen with Deebo Samuel, and answer the question, should the Chiefs trade for Deebo Samuel? Give me your answers down below, and I'll see you in the next one.